Hello everyone and welcome to this new tutorial on my channel. And in this video I'll be showing you how to make this Miffy jewelry holder. And I think it looks really adorable just by itself already, but you could use it as a jewelry holder as well. So for example, the space around Miffy, you could use that to put your necklace there or bracelets if you have them, like so. And you could use the ears for stacking on rings. So let's put one right here. And if you have more rings, you could stack them on top of those, or you could use the arms as well. So I've mainly designed it to be a jewelry holder, but you could use it for some other things as well, I can imagine. For example, you could use it for your stitch markers, like this. And if you have other ideas of what to use it for, please comment them down below. I'm really curious to what you can come up with. I hope you will like the video. If you like it, don't forget to give the thumbs up. This would really help me a lot. And let's get started. You'll need white yarn and one different color. I'll be making this one in blue. Also, the yarn I'm using is a combination of 60% cotton with 40% acrylic. You'll need a crochet hook. I'm using a 3mm hook. Scissors, a darning needle, safety eyes, these are 5mm, black embroidery yarn. However, if you don't have embroidery yarn, you can also use regular yarn and split the ends to make the yarn thinner. A stitch marker and some stuffing. Okay, so first we're going to make the trinket tray, and this is the circle Miffy is standing on. So for that, I'm going to grab my blue yarn this time, and we're going to start off by making a magic circle. And if you're not entirely sure how to do this, I've got a separate video on my channel explaining how I'm always doing it, and I will link that down below in the description. Alright, so for the first round, we're going to do 8 single crochet into the magic circle. So we're going to go into the magic circle, pick up a loop. Now you got 2 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. That's our first single crochet. We're going to make a total of 8. 2, 7 and 8, like this. Then you can close the magic circle. And to connect the round, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first stitch. So that's the one right there. We're going to go in there. We're going to yarn over, pull through the stitch, and pull through the loop on your hook. Alright, so that was it for the first round. Now we can insert our stitch marker into the slip stitch that we did. And now we can start doing round 2. So for round 2, we're first going to chain 1. And then we're going to do increases in all of the stitches that we got around. So we'll be doing a total of 8 increases. And because of that, we're going to go up from a stitch count of 8 to a stitch count of 16. So let's do that. Do a single crochet into the first stitch. Now we're going to go back into the same space and do another single crochet in there. And because of that, we made our first increase. Okay, we're going to do this all the way around. Okay. And we're going to do the last increase into the stitch with our stitch marker. So for that, we're going to take out the stitch marker. and we're gonna do our last increase in there. Now to connect the round, we're once again gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch that we did. So the first V that you're gonna see is the chain 1 that we did. So we're gonna skip that one and we're gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch that we did. So that's the one right there. Gonna go in there and do a slip stitch. Okay. Now we can insert our stitch marker into the slip stitch. And that was it for the second round. Okay, so now for the third round, we're first going to chain 1. And then we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first stitch and an increase into the second. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. And because of that, we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 16 to a stitch count of 24. All right, so let's do that. Do 1 single crochet into the first stitch. And an increase into the second. One into the first. And an increase into the second. Okay, we're going to repeat this all the way around, and you should be putting in an increase into the stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so I'm doing my last increase. And now to connect the round, we're first going to do a slip stitch into the first stitch that we did. So this was the chain 1, and this is the first stitch. So we're gonna go in there and do a slip stitch. Now let's insert our stitch marker back into the slip stitch. And that was it for the third round. For round 4, we're once again first going to chain 1. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches. And we're going to do an increase into the third stitch. We're going to repeat this all the way around. And because of that, we're going to go up from a stitch count of 24 to a stitch count of 32. All right, let's do that. Do 1 single crochet into the first. 1 into the second. And an increase into the third. One into the first, 1 into the second, and an increase into the third. Okay, repeat this all the way around, and you should be putting in your last increase into the stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so now to connect the round, we're once again gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch that we did. So skip the chain 1 and let's do a slip stitch right here. All right, now let's insert our stitch marker back into the slip stitch. And that was it for round 4. Now for round 5, we're once again first gonna chain 1. And then we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first 3 stitches. And we're gonna do an increase into the 4th stitch. We're going to repeat this all the way around. And because of that, we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 32 to a stitch count of 40. All right, so let's do that. Do 1 single crochet into the first. 1 into the second. 1 into the third. And do an increase into the 4th stitch. 1 into the first, 1 into the second, 1 into the third, and an increase into the 4th. Okay, repeat this all the way around, and you should be putting in an increase into the last stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, now do a slip stitch to connect the round. So skip the chain one and let's do a slip stitch. Insert your stitch marker back into the slip stitch. And that was it for round 5. Now for round 6, we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first 4 stitches and we're gonna do an increase into the 5th stitch. We're going to repeat this all the way around, and because of that we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 40 to a stitch count of 48. Alright, so do one. Oh, first we're going to chain 1. I forgot that for a moment. Do 1 single crochet into the first, 1 into the second, 1 into the third, 1 into 4, and do an increase into 5. 1 into the first, 1 into the second, 1 into the third, 1 into the fourth, and do an increase into the 5th. Okay, repeat this all the way around and you should be putting in an increase into the last stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so now let's do a slip stitch into the first stitch that we did. And let's insert our stitch marker back into the slip stitch. And that was it for round 6. Now for round 7, we're once again gonna chain 1. And we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first 11 stitches. And we're gonna do an increase into the 12th stitch. We're going to repeat this all the way around, and because of that we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 48 to a stitch count of 52. Alright, so let's do that. Let's count. 1 into the first, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now let's do an increase into the 12th stitch. Okay, let's do this all the way around, and into the last stitch, the stitch with the stitch marker, you should be putting in your last increase. So count 11 stitches and do an increase into the 12th. And I will meet you at the end of round 7. Okay, so I've done my last increase. We're gonna skip the chain 1 and we're gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. Okay, now let's insert our stitch marker into the slip stitch. And that was it for round 7. Now for round 8, we're once again gonna chain 1 and we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first 12 stitches, and we're gonna do an increase into the 13th stitch. And because of that, we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 52 to a stitch count of 56. All right, let's do that. Let's count to 12. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now into the 13th stitch, we're gonna do an increase. Okay, repeat this all the way around and you should be putting in your last increase into the stitch with the stitch marker. So let's do that, and I will meet you at the end of round 8. Okay, I've just done my last increase, and now we're gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch. So this is the chain 1 and this is the first stitch. Okay, now let's insert our stitch marker back into the slip stitch. And that was it for round 8. Now for round 9 and 10, so for a total of 2 rounds, we're just gonna do 1 single crochet in all of the stitches that we got around. So for both rounds, we're first going to chain 1, and we're just gonna do 1 single crochet in all of the stitches that we got around. So the stitch count shouldn't change, and you should move your stitch marker twice. Okay, so let's do that, and I will meet you at the end of round 10. Okay, so once you're at the end of round 10, we're first gonna do a slip stitch into the first stitch again. And insert our stitch marker back into the slip stitch. Okay, so now round 10 is finished, and for round 11, which is the last round, we're first going to chain 2. And after that, we're gonna do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay. So for this first one, we chained 2. For all of the remaining stitches, we're gonna do chain 1 and do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Chain 1 and do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay, we're going to repeat this all the way around, and you should be putting in your last slip stitch into the stitch with the stitch marker. So let's do that, and I will meet you at the end of round 11. Okay, so I've done the last one now, and now we can cut off the yarn. Leave a little end to it, because we're gonna have to hide it into our work, and pull it through. Now let's already hide the yarn ends so that we are done with this part. So grab your darning needle and attach it to one of the yarn ends. I'm first going to hide this one right here. Okay, so first I'm gonna bring it to the back of my work, and I'm gonna do that by going into the same stitch as where I did the slip stitch. So I'm gonna go right in there, like so. On the back of my work, I'm just gonna move through some stitches. It doesn't really matter which ones. For example, like this. And just push it through. Okay. I'm gonna move in one more direction, so I'm gonna go there. Okay, and just push it through. Something like that. Then you can cut off the yarn, just cut it short. And then it's hidden into your work. Now let's hide this one as well. So this is the one of the magic circle. And let's just go through some stitches. Like that. And then you can cut this one short as well. Okay, so now the trinket tray is finished. Okay, so now let's make Miffy, and first we're going to make the base of Miffy, and the base is the head with the body. After that we're going to make the ears and the arms. So first we're going to make the base, and we're going to start right here at the top, and we're going to work our way down like this. So first we're going to need our white yarn. So grab your white yarn, and we're going to start off by making a magic circle. All right. So for the first round, we're first going to do 6 single crochet into the magic circle. So let's do that. Do 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we can close the magic circle. Okay. Now we can insert our stitch marker into the last stitch that we did. And for Miffy, I'm not going to do a slip stitch into the first stitch to connect the round. And the chain 1, I'm going to leave that out as well. That was just specific to the trinket tray. Right now, I'm just going to start doing the second round into this first stitch right here. Okay, so for the second round, we're going to do 1 increase in all of the stitches that we got around. So we'll be doing a total of 6 increases. And because of that, we're going to go up from a stitch count of 6 to a stitch count of 12. So find your first stitch and do an increase in there. Okay, and do an increase. That was our first increase. Second increase. The third increase. The fourth increase. This is increase number 5. And the last increase, we're going to put that one into the stitch with our stitch marker. Okay, so that was it for round 2. Now insert your stitch marker back into the last stitch that you did. And now for round 3, we're going to do 1 single crochet into the first stitch and an increase into the second. We're going to repeat this all the way around, and because of that we're going to go up from a stitch count of 12 to a stitch count of 18. Okay, so do 1 single crochet into the first and an increase into the second. 1 into the first and an increase into the second. Do this all the way around, and you should be putting in your last increase into the stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so I'm doing my last increase. Now let's insert the stitch marker into the last stitch that you did. Okay, and that was it for the third round. Now for round 4, we're going to do 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and we're going to do an increase into the third stitch. We're going to repeat this all the way around, and because of that we're going to go up from a stitch count of 18 to a stitch count of 24. So let's do 1 into the first stitch, 1 into the second, and an increase into the third. 1 into the first, 1 into the second, and an increase into the third. Okay, repeat this all the way around, and you should be putting in your last increase into the stitch with the stitch marker. Okay, so let's put our stitch marker back into the last stitch that we did. And that was it for round 4. Now for round 5 till round 8, so for a total of 4 rounds, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in all of the stitches that we got around. So the stitch count shouldn't change and you will be moving your stitch marker 4 times. So let's do that and I will meet you at the end of round 8. So I've just finished round 8 and now your work should look something like this. And now let's take our crochet hook out for a moment because this is the perfect moment to insert the eyes. So let's grab our safety eyes and we're gonna put them right in between round 6 and 7 with 4 stitches in between. So let's first look for the first eye. So we're gonna count the rows. This is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So we're gonna put it right in between here into a random stitch. For example, this one right here. Now we're gonna make sure that there are 4 stitches in between. And a way I like to do that is to count holes going from the same eye. So let me show you what I mean by that. Here we inserted the first eye. Next to this eye, this is the first hole. This right here is the second hole. This is the third hole. And I'm gonna insert the second eye into the fourth hole going from the first eye. Like that. And now you should see 3 holes in between the 2 eyes. All right. Then we can attach the backs of the eyes. Just click it on. And now the eyes are attached. Okay, now let's continue crocheting. So let's insert the stitch marker back into the last stitch. And let's do round 9. So for round 9, we're gonna do decreases in all of the stitches that we got around. And because of that, we're gonna go down from a stitch count of 24 to a stitch count of 12. And for the last decrease, we're gonna do the color switching part to the color of the dress of Miffy. Okay, so let's first do 11 regular decreases and after that I will show you how to do the color switching part. Okay, so for doing the decreases, we're going to be making invisible decreases. And for invisible decreases, we're going to grab the front loops of the next 2 stitches only. So we're not going to go through the entire stitch like this, but we're gonna go back a little bit and only grab the front loop of the stitch. So you should have only 1 loop on your hook. Keep this on your hook and we're gonna grab the front loop of the second stitch as well. Now we're gonna yarn over, pull through the front loops. Now you got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. That's an invisible decrease. Okay. Let's repeat this 10 more times and I will see you when we're going to do the last decrease. Okay, so now I'm about to do my last decrease using the stitch before the stitch marker and the stitch with the stitch marker. So let's pull the stitch marker out. And we're first gonna start off doing the decrease as we would usually do. So grab the front loops of the 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through the front loops. Now you got 2 loops on your hook. However, instead of yarning over and pulling through this yarn end through the 2 loops, we're gonna do the color switching part here. So we're gonna grab the other color of yarn, we're gonna put it on our hook, And we're gonna pull this one through the 2 loops on our hook, like this. Okay, now I'm gonna make this end a bit longer just by pulling it. Okay, and I'm gonna keep that one right underneath my right index finger to keep it in place. And then I can tighten the loop on my hook by pulling the blue end. And I can tighten the stitch by pulling the white yarn end. Okay, now to finish the color switching part, we're gonna do a slip stitch into the next stitch to make it complete. So that's the stitch right there. I'm gonna go in there and do a slip stitch. All right. Now we're gonna insert our stitch marker into the slip stitch that we did. So the first blue stitch right here. We're gonna insert our stitch marker, and that was the end of round 9. Okay, now for round 10, we're gonna do increases in all of the stitches that we got around. So we'll be doing a total of 12 increases, and because of that, we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 12 to a stitch count of 24. All right, so let's do that. Do 1 single crochet, go back into the same space to do an increase. Okay, do this all the way around and I will meet you at the end of round 10. Okay, so I'm gonna do my last increase here into the stitch of the stitch marker. All right, let's insert our stitch marker back into the last stitch that we did. And that was it for round 10. Now let's first get rid of the white yarn, which is still attached to our work. So let's cut it short. And to make the color switching part extra secure, something I like to do is to tie these 2 yarn ends together. So the white yarn and the blue yarn here. So I'm just gonna make a double knot into them. Like that. And then I put the yarn ends just into my work. Like that. Okay. Now for round 11 till round 15, so for a total of 5 rounds, we're just gonna do 1 single crochet in all of the stitches that we got around. So the stitch count shouldn't change and you should move your stitch marker 5 times. All right, so let's do that and I will meet you at the end of round 15. Okay, so once you're done with round 15, your work should look something like this. Now we're gonna do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And we're gonna finish off our work. Leave quite a long end to it because you're gonna need that for sewing it onto the base. Okay, something like this. And just pull it through. Okay. Now the base of Miffy is finished. Okay, so before we're gonna start assembling anything, let's first make sure that we've crocheted all of the different parts. So right now, let's make the ears. Okay, so for the ears, I'm gonna grab my white yarn again, and we're gonna start off by making a magic circle. Okay, so for the first round, we're gonna do 6 single crochet into the magic circle. So let's do that. And 6. Then we can close the magic circle. And that was it for the first round. I'm not gonna be using a stitch marker for this ear right here because it's gonna be a small project and I feel like the stitch marker will just be in the way, so I prefer to count my stitches. However, if you are gonna use your stitch marker here as well, you can put it in the last stitch that we did here. Now for the second round, we're gonna do 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and we're gonna do an increase into the third stitch. We're gonna do that twice, and because of that, we're gonna go up from a stitch count of 6 to stitch count of 8. Okay, so let's do that. Do 1 single crochet into the first stitch. Do 1 into the second. And an increase into the third. Okay, 1 into the first, 1 into the second, and do an increase into the third. Okay, now you should have 8 stitches around. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that was it for the second round. Now for round 3 till 5, so for a total of 3 rounds, we're just gonna do 1 single crochet in all of the stitches that we got around. So if you're using a stitch marker, you'll be moving your stitch marker 3 times. However, I'll be counting stitches, so I'll just be doing a total of 24 stitches because we're gonna do 8 single crochet for each round, and we're gonna do that 3 times, so that makes a total of 24 single crochet. So I'll just be counting 24 stitches. Okay, so let's do that and I will meet you at the end of round 5. Okay, so once you've done 3 rounds of 8 single crochet, your ear should look something like this. And now we can do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And we can already cut off the yarn. Make sure that you leave quite a long end to it because we're gonna need that for sewing it onto the head later. Something like that. Okay, and just pull it through. So this is the first ear. We're gonna have to make 1 more of these. So you can just go back in the video, make 1 more, and I will see you once you got 2 of them. Okay, so once you've made 2 little ears, the ears are done, and now we can start making the arms. So for the arms, we're also gonna use our white yarn, and we're gonna start again with a magic circle. So for the arms, we're just gonna do 3 single crochet into the magic circle. So 1, 2, and 3, like this. Now we can already close the magic circle. Like so. And cut off the yarn. I'm just gonna cut it about this length. And we can already pull it through. So here is our first little arm. Now we're gonna make 2 of these as well. Once you've made 2 little arms, all of the parts are finished and we can start assembling everything. Okay, so let's first grab the base of Miffy and we're gonna sew this onto the trinket tray right here. However, let's first put some stuffing in here. So grab your stuffing. And we're just gonna put some in here. You don't have to stuff it entirely yet. When sewing it onto the trinket tray, we can add some stuffing later as well. However, it's nice to have the head already stuffed and a bit of the body. Okay, something like that. Let's add a little more in there. Okay. That's enough for now. let's start sewing it onto the trinket tray. So let's grab the yarn end attached to Miffy and let's attach our darning needle. Now before we're gonna sew it onto the trinket tray, let's first prepare this right here because we want to make this transition here look a bit nicer. So for that, we're gonna go look for the next stitch. That's the one right here. Here we did slip stitch. This is our next stitch. And we're gonna go through the front loop only. Like that. And we're just gonna push our needle through there. Because of that, this looks a bit nicer. Okay, so for sewing Miffy onto the trinket tray, we're gonna use the outer loops of all of the stitches only. So we're gonna sew these stitches here together with stitches on the trinket, and we're only gonna use the outer loops here. So for example, for this next stitch right here, we're only gonna grab this outer loop instead of the entire stitch. So only the first loop, the outer loop on the outside of your work. Okay, we're going to do that for all of the stitches. That's important to keep in mind. Also, we're going to sew Miffy right onto the trinket in between round 3 and 4. So when we count from the middle, this is the first round, this is the second round, and this is the third round. Okay, we're going to sew Miffy right in between 3 and 4. So we're going to use these stitches right here for sewing Miffy on there. Okay, so let's first find a first random stitch on the trinket. So 1, 2, 3, between 3 and 4, let's go in here, for example, and just push it through. Okay, like that. Now let's go back to the front of our work and move 1 stitch to the side. So come out of a stitch right next to the stitch we just went into, in between round 3 and 4. So we just went in here. Let's come out of here for now. And let's grab the outer loop of the next stitch on Miffy to connect to this stitch. So that's the one right here. Okay, we're gonna go through there and we're just gonna repeat this all the way around. So we're gonna grab the outer loop of the next stitch on Miffy. Let's go through there. And we're gonna go into the next stitch right in between round 3 and 4. So we just went in here. Let's now go in here and come out of the next stitch. Okay, and just pull it. Okay, now let's look for the next stitch on Miffy. That's the one right there. And go through the outer loop. Go through the next stitch on Miffy. Grab the outer loop, pull it through. Now we're gonna look for the next stitch on the trinket. That's the one right here. And we're gonna come out of the next one. Okay, go into the next stitch on Miffy, grab the outer loop, go through there, go through the next outer loop, okay, go through the next loop. Okay, so now I have this space left right here, and now I'm gonna add my stuffing. So I'm just gonna push it in there with my fingers. Okay. can just check whether you like how firm it is. I think mine is fine now, so I'm going to put my stuffing to the side and I'm just going to continue sewing the two parts together. Okay, so now I'm basically at the end. I'm gonna almost close it, so I'm gonna grab the last stitch on Miffy and just pull it through. Okay, now I'm gonna go right into the same stitch on a trinket I just went into. I'm gonna come out of the next one and pull it through, and now I'm gonna create a knot to secure it. And I'm gonna do that by grabbing a random string on Miffy, so for example this one right here, and I'm gonna create a loop. Okay, now I'm gonna go through the loop with my needle and I'm gonna tighten it, and because of that we have created this knot right here. Okay, now let's go into a space close to the knot and let's come out of the other side of Miffy. So just push it through your work. And then we can cut it short. Alright, so now the base is attached to the trinket. Now let's sew on the ears. So let's grab one of the ears. And first we're gonna make sure that there is some stuffing in there. So let's first put this short yarn end, which is still of the magic circle. Let's put that into our work. Just pushing it in like that. Then we're gonna grab some stuffing. You don't need too much because it's really small. And we're just gonna push it in there. I like to use my scissors here because it's a really small opening. Okay. I think that's already enough stuffing for the ears, so I'm gonna leave it like this. Okay, let's grab our darning needle and attach it to the yarn end. And for the ear, we're also gonna make sure that this looks a bit nicer by going through the outer loop of the next stitch. So here we did slip stitch, and this is the next stitch. So let's go through the outer loop and just pull it through. Okay, that looks a bit nicer like this. So for the ear as well, we're just gonna use the outer loops of the stitches when sewing it onto Miffy's head right here. Okay, so we're gonna place the ear on top of Miffy, right next to the hole of the magic circle. So to the left or the right, depends on which ear you're sewing on first. I'm gonna put it right here. So to the left side of the hole of the magic circle. And you want to make sure that it's in the middle of the head like this as well. So just make sure that it's positioned the way you like it. Make sure it's in the middle. Like this. Okay, then I'm gonna keep the ear in place using my right index finger, and I'm gonna use my other hand for sewing. So I'm left-handed, so when you're right-handed you might want to do it the other way. So keep it in place with your left hand and do the sewing with your right hand. Oh. Okay. So keep it in place. And we're just gonna see which stitch on Miffy's head is close to the yarn end we have right here. So I think this stitch right here is pretty close to my yarn end on the ear. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to come out of a next stitch, which I think aligns with the next one. So for example, like this. Okay, this one aligns with the next one. So I'm going to go through the next outer loop on Miffy. So this was the previous one. Let's go through this one right here. Okay. Let's keep it in place. Now let's go through the next outer loop on Miffy's ear. And I think this one lines up with the middle of the magic circle. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to come out of this stitch right here because I think that one is lining up with the next one. Okay, it's a little difficult to explain. I hope it's clear. So you're just gonna look all the time. You're gonna make sure that the ear is positioned the way you want. And you're gonna look which stitch on the ear lines up with which stitch on Miffy's head. Okay. Now I'm gonna go through the next stitch on Miffy's ear. And I'm gonna look which stitch on Miffy's head lines up with my yarn end right now. I think it's this one right here. Then I'm gonna come out of the one next to it. And grab the next outer loop on the ear. Okay, let's go through the next one. And I think this one is lining up. I'm gonna come out of here. Okay. Like that. And now I've already finished sewing it on, so I'm going to go back to the same space on the head. I'm going to come out of the next one. And I'm going to secure it by grabbing a random string on Miffy's ear, close to my yarn end. I'm going to create a loop. I'm going to go through the loop and pull it to create a knot. And then I'm going to go into my work close to the knot. Come out of the other side, push it through, and then we can cut it short. Okay, so now the first ear is attached. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing for this other ear, and I will see you once that one is attached as well. Okay, so once both ears are attached, we can go ahead and attach the arms. So for attaching the arms, I'm going to be using my crochet hook, and I'm just going to pull these yarn ends through the body with my hook. You can use your needle as well, but I think it's nicer to use my hook here. And we're going to attach them right in between round 11 and 12. So this is round 10. That's the first round we did in the different color. So this is round 11 and this is 12. We're going to attach them right in between here. One on one side here. And one on the other side right here. Okay, so let's grab one arm. We're gonna go through a random stitch right underneath here. And we're gonna come out of a stitch right in between round 11 and 12, which is a bit on the side of my work. Okay, like this for example. Then I'm gonna grab one string of the arm and I'm gonna pull it through here. Okay, like this. Now one side of the arm is attached. I'm gonna go back into this random space here. And I'm gonna come out of a stitch right next to the other one. So that's right here. And I'm gonna grab the other string and I'm gonna pull it through. Like so. Then you can check whether you like how it's positioned, and if not, you can still take it out and change it. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Now let's attach the other arm. So once again, we're gonna go into a random stitch on Miffy, and we're gonna come out right in between round 11 and 12 on the side of our work. So for example, right here. Okay, I'm gonna grab one string of the arm and I'm gonna pull it through. Now I'm gonna go back into this random space. I'm gonna go one stitch next to it. I'm gonna come out of there and I'm gonna grab the other yarn end and pull it through so that it's together with the first one right here. Okay. Now I'm gonna check whether I like how they are positioned together as well. I think that's fine. So I'm gonna leave it like this and I'm just gonna make double knots into the yarn ends. And I'm gonna make sure that I pull it very tightly because you want it to be really secure here. So just make a knot and make another one as well. Okay, let's make a double knot in here as well. Like that, and then we can simply cut off the yarn ends, cut them short. Okay, make sure they are hidden into your work. And then the arms are attached as well. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is to sew on the mouth. And the mouth is gonna be a little cross actually, like this. And I always make sure that the mouth is in between the eyes and a little bit going down like this. So you get this little triangle shape basically. So let's do that. I'm gonna grab my embroidery yarn and attach it to my darning needle. However, if you don't have embroidery yarn, as I showed you in the beginning, you can also use regular yarn and just untwist the ends to make it thinner. So you can only use 2 of these strands, for example. Okay. So once it's attached to your darning needle, we're gonna grab Miffy and let's go into a random stitch on the face. So for example, right here. Okay, now I'm gonna come out of a space where I want one of the top corners to be. So I think I'm gonna come out here, which is the left top corner for me. Okay, for example, like that. Then I'm gonna think where I want the right corner to be here. So I'm gonna make a diagonal here. I think I want it to be there. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna come out of a stitch where I want the right top corner to be. So I'm gonna go in there and come out of, let's say, the stitch right here. For example. Okay, so now I have made the first diagonal and now I'm gonna make the second one. So let's see where I want the other corner to be, the last one. I think I want it to be there. Okay. And now I'm going to come out of the same space where we first went in, this random space right here. Because I want to make sure that the two yarn ends are together. Okay. And just pull it. Now I'm going to make sure to check whether I like the way it looks, and if I don't like it, I can still change it now because it's not secured yet. I think that looks fine the way it is, so I'm going to cut it short. I'm going to cut both ends shorter. Then I'm going to make a double knot in here. And I'm not going to pull it too tightly, just a little bit. It's not necessary here to pull it tightly. Something like that. Then I'm going to cut it short. And I'm going to hide it by pushing it into my work with my scissors. Okay, like that. And now the mouth is on there as well. Okay, so now our Miffy jewelry holder is finished and I'm really happy with the way he turned out. I think he's adorable. I hope you like the way yours turned out as well. If you are sharing your final result on the socials, please don't forget to tag me there. I would love to see your creations. I hope you liked the video as well. If you liked it, don't forget to give the thumbs up. This would really help me a lot. And I hope I will see you in another video. So thank you for watching and see you!